Lace 'em up, let's start the show. We're digging in with Tripp. 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 We're digging in with Tripp today. Yeah.
This is going to be a fun one. We're going to dig in with the majority owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, Tom Dundon, momentarily. Get out your popcorn. This is going to be a doozy. And we're able to do it. Nope, before we get to new country, I want to, first of all, as we always do, remind you on all of our platforms, audio and YouTube, to rate us, give us your feedback, provide questions, and number one, we're going to know where our vehicle is at, how it can get better to take that thing down the Autobahn for you and satisfy you. Why I'm trying it. I've had a tendency lately to say quite a bit. I'm trying to really avoid it. But also, just make sure that we have the interactive experience that actually Tom and I are going to talk about that he's tried to achieve since he bought the Hurricanes between the players and the fans. So can you do that? And also, can you go to digintrip.com? Our merchandise, I don't even want to touch it because we really did a job here. It's hot. We just introduced visors. For those watching on YouTube, I'm digging in, considering Yetis. Adam the Admiral Holtzman, my producer and partner, has really done a job on the merchandise front. So please go check it out. Get involved. If you're trying to create mojo, this will only help your chances. Digintrip.com. So you got to take a sip for good luck. New Country, our presenting sponsor. They've dug in with us for a long time. Auto dealerships in New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Florida. BMW, Mercedes, Maserati, Ferrari. If you prefer to feel like a munchkin from the Wizard of Oz and you want a smart car, they got those too. Family owned. They check every box that you want in terms of quality of product, service, attention that you'd want in an automotive group. Elite, beyond elite. Why? Because they dig in. Newcountry.com. So without further ado, let's now get right to it with my owner, Tom Dundon. Well, this is going to be a very, very memorable episode. Is I'm going to dig in with my owner, my boss with the Carolina Hurricanes, but I don't want to reach Tom, but I'd like to reach out and say, and also my friend. And Tom, I start every show of digging in, and I ask how a particular person who has shown a propensity to dig in defines it. And my gosh, you just turned 49. Happy belated birthday just over a month ago. What you've accomplished in nearly half a century with time still to go defines digging in. So how do you define it?
I think if you're lucky and you get to do things you really like doing, then it's pretty easy, right? It's pretty easy to try hard if you enjoy it. So I've been fortunate that I get to do something or a bunch of stuff that I really like to do. And for me, there's only kind of one way to do stuff, right? Like it's not a choice I make. It's the way I'm programmed is I want to win. I want to do my best. And it's easy to do that if you enjoy what it is you're working on.
Tom, you've always been behind the scenes. And so I'm going to go back to the origin, being born in New York in the early years, because when I look at digging in, it's upbringing, it's how you deal with adversity, it's being to thine own self be true. So where were you born in New York? Tell me about the early years.
Yeah, I was born in Brooklyn, but I was only there as an infant, so I never lived in New York, visited it with family. And so I don't think it had much influence on me other than when I went back, I realized after you've lived in the South most of your life that I think people in the South are maybe a little more friendly, a little easier to be around. And that probably suits me better. You know, when I'd go back there, maybe the strong accent and a little bit of the attitude, you don't mind it for a little while, but eventually I think places like Dallas and Raleigh are maybe a little more comfortable.
How was it? And I was just thinking about, I'd like to think I have an elephant-like memory, but what's the earliest stage in my life I remember at this point? And I'd put it I think I remember something at about 6. What's your earliest year, you think?
Yeah, I think that's probably right. So preschool, elementary. I don't even remember really. I just, I think like everybody else, right? When you're a little kid, you just go play outside with your friends, and that's kind of what you remember is, little league or going to school or whatever. But there was I don't have any defining moments or anything great that happened. I've always been the same way, right? I always wanted to do things where people keep score and you compete, whatever the game is. That's what's always been fun to me. And I don't know why. I just know that I'd rather do that than sit around.
I can tell you this, right around 6, 7, right down the street from here in Michigan, I skated an outdoor rink, and I guess I didn't have a good stitch job, still have a scar. That was with my friends. How many brothers and sisters did you have? Do you have? Hello.
I have one brother who lives in Dallas, who's a year older than me.
He's a year older than you. Why did your family happen to pick Dallas?
This is my dad's job when I was little. Moved to Houston and then transferred to Dallas in high school, and then I've been here since. I never had a reason to go anywhere else.
No, it's a great spot. Tom, this might be an overshare, but I remember one game years ago against the Dallas Stars, and where the broadcast booth is, you're right in the middle of the club level. And I went to go use the bathroom during the second intermission. And my gosh, there was so much vibe on that club level. It's the one time I almost didn't come back for the third period.
Yeah, it was fun. I used to do that a lot.
What kind of job did your dad have that brought your family to Texas?
He managed restaurants. We were, normal, whatever, middle class, the idea of owning a hockey team or even going to a hockey game wouldn't have crossed my mind growing up. Those weren't the kind of things that I had access to.
So I'm going to bring you to a quote from your head coach. You know how tight I am with Rod. And this is pretty strong wording from Rod Brind'Amour. And I want to get it verbatim, so I'm going to look down. Flat out hard work. Had to earn everything that he's gotten him to where he is today. He had to completely dig in to get here. That's the thing I respect about him the most. It's a strong compliment from a guy that's always dug in. And Rod, first of all, your reaction to that.
Yeah, Rod's interesting because he's one of the few people I've run into where, I wouldn't want to have to compete with him, and no matter what it is, right? I always kind of feel like I'm probably going to win, whether it's whatever the business is or whatever the situation is. I'll figure out a way to get ahead. And I don't think, I think if you took Rod and stuck him as a CEO of a company tomorrow, he'd figure it out. Figured out how to be a head coach. He's a great dad. He's a great friend. He's hard to compete with for sure. So yeah, I'm proud that he's our coach, and he's a good man, and I appreciate him saying that.
Love that. You certainly have one department, Tom. You've certainly got a much nicer nose.
Yeah.
What you're a super golfer, and we'll get in later in the show. Your dear friend John Isner. You guys will be playing in a tennis club championship in a couple of weeks. But what sports did you play growing up, and any that you really enjoyed the most, competing or any other facet of it?
Yeah, I think I was like most kids. You play baseball and soccer or just whatever it is. For me, it doesn't matter. I like, if we go to the beach and, pick up a Frisbee and play catch, that's fine with me. Like I like it all. I just want to be doing something. I pretty much like all sports, and anything where, like I say, anything where you're seeing who's going to win is pretty fun.
Where do you think that competitive gene, that intrinsic part of your DNA comes from?
I don't know. I mean, I think it was a problem for me, probably most of my life, because I don't know how to stop. Right. And so as you get older, you have your kids and you want to make sure that you teach them certain lessons, and it probably helps you realize that winning and losing isn't as important as maybe I thought it was. And so I'm a little soft now, right? Like I'm a lot easier to deal with than I was, but yeah, I don't know. It's just always been the way I've looked at things. I've always, if I was doing something and I cared about it, then I wanted to be good at it.
You know, I'm going to go off the highway here for a second just to react to that. You are a father of 5 kids. I've had the opportunity to meet a couple of your kids. My mom off screen here, for those watching on YouTube, she's practically given up on me, being single at almost 47. But so Tom, as a parent, I've had this conversation with Rod. It's changed because, whatever level of, having a cup of coffee in the NHL. I mean, I was taught to hate losing. I was taught that it was an important part of the process of becoming a winner, of feel it, marinate in it, sleep in it. Now it seems like it's almost like everybody should get a trophy. Everybody's a winner. Where do you fall in line on that? Being the fact that you're an ultra competitor and you're, I've seen it firsthand, a tremendous parent.
Yeah, look, for me, it's less about whether, at least with my kids and with the hockey team, I think Rod and I agree with this. There's some process you go through where you do your best and you treat people a certain way, but you do everything you can to succeed. And if I get all those things, I can handle the outcome, especially with my kids. So I've never thought about the winning or losing with them as much as, are they doing their best? Are they doing it right? Whatever, to use a cliche. So it bothers me. I've never thought about them in terms of winning and losing as much as are they, if they're going to do something, they do it their best. If they want to be competitive at it, if they're doing something for fun, then they should do that for fun. But I try to make sure they know the difference, right? You and your buddies want to go mess around. But if you want to join a team and spend the money and practice, and then if you're going to do all those things, then you're supposed to try to win. You're supposed to do everything you can. And so with kids, it's easier, because I don't know what it was like for you, but we're similar age. And, I think parenting's different now, right? We're not nearly as hard on the kids as our parents were on us probably. And I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but yeah, I'm not in for the participation stuff. I don't agree at all. I always used to think about my kids weren't in the top math class, but then sometimes you'd get in trouble when you're playing sports, when you're in youth sports, and then some kid doesn't play or make the top team. And, that you're a bad guy if you're coaching kids and everyone doesn't get to participate. But I used to laugh with my wife. I'm like, well, my kid doesn't get to be in the math honors class, so how is that fair? That's kind of how I look at it.
This applies, I think, to kids, and also, really your athletes with the Hurricanes. How do you walk that fine line, Tom, of accomplishing accountability, but simultaneously self-belief? And the reason that I'm asking you, and I want you to react to it, gosh, I remember 4th grade. I was the only one playing hockey. So in floor hockey and gym class, I knew at any point I could stick handle through everybody and score. I just knew. And somewhere in college, before my brief time playing pro, that belief went to doubt, hope. You're a big golfer. Hope's not a strategy if you're trying to make a putt. If I'm worried about giving up a soft goal, that's a problem. So I guess I would love to hear your viewpoint, both for kids. Does it start then, or then can it be created later for all of your individual Hurricanes player and the group as a whole. How do you achieve accountability, but that self-belief that individually and collectively, yeah, I want to be the difference and I can be the difference to win?
I think with the Hurricanes, it feels like a couple years ago, like every team, they would say, you know, we're really good, but they knew they weren't, right? Like I think that first year I was here, everybody knew that when the other teams dig in, the better teams, the Washingtons, the Bostons, we didn't have an answer because we weren't as good as them. That was just the truth. And now we are. And I think you can't trick it. You know, like the truth is part of the reason Rod wants them prepared and we want to do things the way we do it is when it's time to perform, you're not talking yourself into believing you're good if you know you're not. And I think for us, we had to have enough good players that were prepared in a way that they didn't have to talk themselves into it. They knew. And I think that's where we are now. And one of the things that Roddy does a really good job on is we're not looking for someone to blame. Like I'm not upset. I'm upset we lost, but I'm not upset with anybody. Some people played well. Some people didn't play as well as they wanted to. But I know every one of them wanted to do their best or did their best and didn't take it for granted and didn't play bad because they weren't prepared or didn't care. So if everybody's talented enough, cares enough, works hard enough, and is prepared, then we'll live with the result. So I don't look at the result as much as the process that we go through. And I think we've got a really good process now. So I don't think there's anybody that doesn't know for a fact that we not only could, but we probably should win almost every game we play. And that's, to me, that's success. Now we'll see if the results match up to where we think we are. But, you know, collectively, I don't think there's anybody in there that doesn't think we're pretty good.
Yeah, and it's not a fake job. It's an expectation, and it is the process. The process that, you know, Rod has taught me over the years. Your foundation, the work, pulling up the bootstraps. That gives you that not intestinal fortitude. It gives you that confidence. It gives you that expectation. But I do have to ask this because I want to go to SMU. You graduated economics in '93. You know, because Rod, Tom, I always give him heat. Harvard recruited him. You know, that's my alma mater. He chose Michigan State in his 1 year play in college. Who bounced him? Who eliminated him in the Final Four? Harvard. Yep.
Really?
Yep. Oh, yeah. He's never, you know what? And that eats at him because Harvard won the national championship. So Rod made a poor choice. He hasn't made many, but he made one that year. Why did you choose SMU?
I didn't, back then the internet, we didn't have the internet when I was looking at colleges. It was just now kind of, it was like AOL, I think it was just getting started where people were using it. And so you just got a book and you just looked in the book and you read about different colleges, and nobody in my family had gone to college. I didn't know anything about it. And I lived here and it was down the street and I'd gone to a couple parties and that was fun. So I didn't really have a reason to go anywhere else because I wouldn't have known the difference. And so for me, it was just, if I went to college somewhere else, I don't know how I would have had the money to get home, for Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever it is. So it was 20 minutes from my house and that's why I did it. So it was the least critical decision I've ever made, right? It was just because it was close. No other reason.
You majored in economics. Was that, did you know you were going that route with your concentration right from the get-go?
No, I thought I'd do a business degree when I got to college because I didn't know any different. And they had a program where if you did an economics major, you could get your master's if you stayed one extra year instead of having to get 2 extra years. And, 20, 30 years ago, I mean, people still get their master's, but I think it's less necessary now or less expected. And so back then I thought that's what I was supposed to do. So I took the economics as the undergrad to get into business school. I think by my senior year, I could have started those business school classes. And when I got into it, I realized college was fun and studying wasn't. And so, the amount of work it would have taken to do all that in that compressed time. And I had to work because I didn't have any money. So I worked during college. And so I I never could figure out how to get all that. So I ended up with an economics degree and nothing else.
What was your job you were working at to make ends meet in college?
Mostly waiter, bartender. I refereed basketball games, just whatever. I did all kind of stuff.
It's pretty cool. And hang on, Tom, is this, what was the name? Was it Phi Gamma Delta that you were the El Presidente of?
Yeah, that was the fraternity.
Okay, so tell me about this fraternity. Do you keep in touch with the crew? Well,
there's a lot of my buddies that live here in Dallas, but I don't keep in touch as much as some people do. I've got my kids and I've got my close friends and my wife and I had work and now I have the hurricane. So I spend more time on that, but yeah, I still have a lot of friends from college and I see them once in a while. But the fraternity thing was just sort of what you did. I don't know why I did it as much as it was just what everybody did. It was a good time.
Didn't Tom, I had never been to a draft. Even when I went as an afterthought in the 9th round, my dad told me the next morning. And so I came to the draft, and my gosh, I am so grateful because it's when you chose Andrei Svechnikov, and I had a ball. And so you're busy, and I didn't even know how it worked, that every team has a suite up on the club level. So I'm hanging out in the suite. I met your wife. She was terrific. So, there I am, I'm asking a trillion questions. And I asked her how you guys met. Now, we're going to test my memory if it's like an elephant. Was she going to school in California? And did she there was somehow one of her friends was dating your friends? Or how did you guys meet? Am I somewhere on track correctly there?
Yeah, one of my buddies was dating her roommate and introduced us. And so we dated sort of long distance, and then she moved to Dallas, a year or two later. But yeah, I got a good one. My wife's a nice person.
She was, that was a really enjoyable conversation. What a night. Gosh, what a night.
That was a good night for us, wasn't it?
Oh my gosh, was it a good night? You know what my favorite, it's because Tom was my first draft. So I'm hanging out in there. And so, Andrei comes in, his mom and dad, you become very friendly with both of his agents, Mark Gandler and Todd Diamond, both seasoned veterans in the game. And they're all in there. Andrei's brother, Evgeny. And it was I'm just looking around. Roddy Brind'Amour's there, talking to Dale Howardchuk, God rest his soul, who was a teammate of Rod's in Philadelphia. Yeah. And, it was just, you know what, Tom, I can still see it. It was absolutely tremendous. You're up on the stage with your kids selecting Andrei, who you've said to me at times, I think of him as another son. What was the dinner you told me about, I think in Raleigh with Andrei, and he made such a terrific impression? Was that before? Was that after? Tell me about that.
Yeah, it was before the draft. When we got the pick, the consensus was that Dahlin would go number 1. And then there was Andrei, Kachuk, Zadina, Kotkaniemi. There were a few guys that it was a debate about who would go next. And so the normal thing to do is to interview when you have that high of a pick. And so bring him into town. And Andrei was the only person I met. We'll just say that. And the only person I spoke to, because one, you don't have to know hockey to be able to watch this kid.
Yeah.
And then when you hear, the reports about what kind of person he is. So yeah, he came to town, and, I always tell people we're very, very lucky what a good kid he is. But we'd have picked him if he was a jerk, because he's that good. Right. And we would just have to deal with it. But he's not. And so, yeah, that was, once you met him, I think even if he wasn't as good, it'd have been hard not to pick him because he's such a good kid. But we got both this time.
That's very well said, because just thinking about it, I can get away with this because we're a bunch of jerks, but I have my days where I'm a jerk. I can't think of any day since I've known Andrei where he even comes close to that. You could go to every continent on the planet. They're all going to marvel about this guy, aside from the player he is. No doubt about it.
Yeah, no, we're really lucky. He's probably even better than people realize, like if he wants something that we need, something for the players, he's so polite, so shy to ask. And I'm like, I wish you need to tell me this stuff, right? We want you to have these things. He doesn't take anything for granted. He does anything we ask of him. Yeah, you couldn't ask for a better kid. He's not, I don't know how he does it. I don't know how you can consistently be that kind and that generous, while also having that much talent, because sometimes talent corrupts people, and it hasn't done that to him at all. And I don't think it ever will.
And the trifecta, be that nice, be that good, but be that competitive, because he hits the ice. Tom, I remember game 2, he hit somebody on the Bruins from behind and Chara went at him. I remember thinking right there on TV and saying on TV, watch out, because he was having an okay game. Watch out. You got him now. And he came out of the box, and he and Natchez were sensational. You can just, so be that nice. But, I mean, he is the right kind of angry on the ice. He's got it all. He's got it all.
Pull him back. I tell him all the time, like, we want you to play for 20, 25 years. Like, don't hurt yourself. But he can't help himself.
You ask the players what they need, which segues me perfectly to go back to right after you graduated in 93. Since you became the majority owner, like, the guys, what they eat, nutritionist, that's traveled with us on the road. That's a major visible priority. So, Tom, you mentioned that your dad was in the restaurant business. What made you get into the restaurant business, and tell me about the restaurant? Was that the first move after college?
Yeah. When I graduated in 93, I guess the economy wasn't very good and no one wanted to hire me. Maybe it was me though. But there weren't a lot of jobs, and I had worked in restaurants just to make ends meet. And a friend and I borrowed some money and started a place that lasted less than a year. It didn't go very well. And then I got into what I ended up doing. So I was probably lucky it was unsuccessful, or I don't think I would have ended up doing the things I did had that done a little bit better. So,
or one could say, and that's, one of the reasons you're on the show, you dug in. So, digging in is adversity. Everybody, there's a guy, boy, I wish, you'd get to know this guy. Played on a line with Rod at times when the Hurricanes won the Stanley Cup. He's a champion, Andrew Ladd. And I was talking to him on Saturday. We're very close. And he said, Tripp, your show is about adversity, because anybody who digs in, I want to hear, he said to me, I want to hear about their personal adversity, how you react to it. Because typically there's a fork in the road. You go one way or you go the other way. So, Tom, if you had to tell me, and if you're like at the Louvre, paint a nice, get on that canvas and paint vividly what you would describe as your most adverse moment, and what tools you used to get through it, to grow from it, to defeat it.
Look, I probably don't look at things in that direct a fashion. Meaning, I think all of us everybody has hard times or things that don't go the way they want. I haven't had anything so devastating in my life that it couldn't be dealt with or overcome. So I consider myself lucky. And, outside of, I think, something happened to your kids, I'd probably say that, right? Like most things you can get over or figure your way around. I think most of the things that have been hard are probably my own doing, right? Like to get ahead and to be successful, you have to do things that are uncomfortable sometimes, or make decisions that other people don't understand or aren't popular, or just are hard to do. And, that's probably been the hardest thing for me is, the way I live my life. I want people to be better off after I met them than before. And I think most people feel that way. And unfortunately, it doesn't always work out that way. And that's probably the hardest thing for me, especially in the hockey business where there's a finite amount of jobs, finite amount of spots on the teams. And, sometimes you really like somebody, or the team really needs, really cares about a person, but you can't keep them. And that's the hardest part for me right now, is how do we show loyalty and do the right thing like we would all do in the rest of our lives in this business. And that's been a pretty tough adjustment in this thing, but that's not adversity compared to what, most people go through every day. I mean, I never had money, so I didn't think that was, like, to me, not having money is not that big a deal, because I was happy when I didn't have money, and I'm happy now that I have money. And so I never looked at not having money as adversity. I just looked at it as sort of, a chance to figure out how to go make some.
Yeah. And Tom, aside from, I don't know, if you need to get to Raleigh real quick, being able to jump on your plane, something like that, the time that I've spent with you, and it's been pretty significant at this point, but I didn't know you before, has having money been a good amount of it? Has it changed you one iota? You seem to be a pretty simple dude to me.
Yeah. My wife and I have talked about this. I'm probably nicer. I'm probably nicer now because there's an obligation. I know how lucky I am and my family is. And so, to the extent that you would never want anybody to think that you think you're better than them, or you think you deserve more than somebody else. And so I'm probably just a little more patient and a little friendlier, which isn't necessarily in my nature, because I'm focused on the things I'm focused on. And I don't ever intentionally, not give other people maybe the appropriate time that I should. But if I do it, if I do end up in a situation where I can spend an extra second on something that maybe it's not in my nature to do, I will, because it feels like, you don't ever want someone thinking that because you were fortunate to have some money that you think you're superior or better, and I don't. And so I think it's probably softened me up a little bit, because there's an obligation that comes with, with being lucky.
Yeah. So now I want to transition. Now, before I do that, I want to ask, because I see it as another pillar of digging in. And you mentioned, difficult, uncomfortable things, but knowing they need to be done. So if you gave any advice, and, I could use some at times myself, of being true to yourself, but with the appropriate thick skin. When you get the disagreeers, the naysayers that tell you they don't agree with what you're doing, and, at least I have that little bird in an ear that, wants to be a little bit of a people pleaser. What advice? Because I think this is a characteristic of the necessity to dig in, of how you stay true to yourself, recognize what you're doing is the right thing in situations like that, if I've described it appropriately.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think, at least as it relates to the Hurricanes, I like that people have an opinion, right? There's been people that have left our team or the organization, and people were mad. And if they weren't, I'd be a lot more worried, right? Because you want them to have a connection to the team, and they've got the team kind of belongs to the town, and you want them to feel that ownership and that pride. And where I don't probably respond very well is that you get the odd, you did this, so I'm not going to cheer for your team anymore. That's probably a bit too far for me to be sympathetic. But the fact that people are upset or care about people that are not here anymore, or we don't work a contract out the way they want, I think that's their right. And I'm actually glad that they care enough to vent it and have their opinion. And I do read and I do listen, and, I still try to do what's best. Ultimately got to do what's best for the team, but I don't have any, not a single ounce of me thinks that it's not the fans' right to have an opinion, because they do get to have an opinion, and I'm glad they have an opinion.
Yeah, apathy would be the worst thing on the planet.
That's right. We were there, kind of.
No,
the truth
there.
is, yeah.
I was right in the trenches of it. Yeah, you don't want apathy. Trust me, I've been there with women. Oh, actually, you know what? That's gonna. I got to ask this question, Tom, and this is falling right on the digging in sword. Do you believe in the Head and Shoulders advertisement? You never get a second chance to make a first impression.
I don't know. No, not necessarily.
Okay, well, I think I've got the exception to that rule. Okay, so you travel right when you're about to you're buying the team. You travel with the team from Toronto to Nashville. It's a rainy, cold Nashville day on a practice day. I've never met you, and I'm in the lobby. Canes are practicing. You say, "Hey, Tripp, let's walk to the ring." And you go through, and it was a great conversation. You asked me about players. You asked me about the team, and then bonehead number one here, not myself, I said to you, "Hey, Tom, I'm going through a tough breakup right now. You got any advice about moving on?" This is in the middle of the rain outside of Bridgestone Arena. I mean, I could not have been more unimpressive. Okay, that ain't digging in. And you said, "Tripp, there are a lot of girls out there." Okay, this is the first time. It's not like we've known him. If I brought that up with you right now, so I would argue that's about the worst first impression. I'd never be on a Head and Shoulders commercial. Thank God I don't use that particular shampoo. But you gave me a chance after, I would say, a grand slam of a bad first impression.
No, I remember the conversation. I don't think anybody wants to be judged for their worst moment, whether it's in a day or a lifetime. And so, yeah, I'm not one of those to take one instance and think that defines anybody, because everybody, if anybody doesn't have moments that they regret, they're lying.
Well, thanks for giving me a mulligan, because I hit that about 4 fairways to the right. Okay, so now I want to get into the origins. Now, you mentioned, you left so young, but you were born in Brooklyn. So I'd never thought about this, with the fact that the Islanders, at least when the Hurricanes played them in the playoffs in the second round, played in Brooklyn at Barclays Center. Was that at all? Did that series take on an added special nature to you, considering that was the borough you were born in?
Not really. I went to that Nassau Coliseum. I think my uncle or somebody had tickets, and they took us. That was the only professional game I'd ever gone to. It was there. So I thought it was interesting, I was glad to see them playing there again. I thought it was nostalgic or interesting. I actually think it was good we didn't have to play them there every game, to tell you the truth.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I grew up a Rangers fan when I was little, not an Islanders fan. And then I moved to Texas, and the Stars came here. And so I pretty much only watched the Stars for the last 25 years.
That takes me to, all right, so the Stars win the Cup. What a hockey club that was in the late 90s. What impact did that have on the eventuality, as you're digging in off the ice, to the eventuality of buying a National Hockey League team?
Well, I always enjoyed it, right? I don't know that would have changed anything, whether they won or didn't win, because I enjoyed going to the games. I went to all the Maverick games and Stars games. So that's what I like to do before I had kids. And even once my kids were first born and they were little, we always had a baby around here. So it was always more fun to take a 6-year-old to a game than change a diaper. So I did a lot of that. And, but the Stars themselves didn't have any impact. I enjoy hockey, and I assume, like most guys that like sports, or most people that like sports, if you get this opportunity, you're kind of supposed to take it, right? So this was the Hurricanes were the opportunity that came across, and I was lucky enough to be able to do it.
One more question about the Stars, accurate or not. Sergei Zubov was your favorite player, and if the answer is yes, why?
That's like the way he plays. I like that style, the smart ones. In basketball, I like that Steve Nash. I don't remember him, but just that. I just like the super smart players. So I always liked watching him play. He wasn't the best player, but he was pretty good.
Thanks, Tom. We're going to cut it off right there. This is just good stuff. And we're going to continue with part 2 with Tom next week. There's a lot of good stuff here. So I think for the first time, this is worthy of 2 episodes. And I want to thank New Country Auto Group for both of those episodes, both now and next week. Don't get into your thing, Tripp. Oh, man. A couple of things here. New Country, what a group. What an automotive group. Dealerships, Jared the Nooch Cantanucci, family-owned group. The Nooch, excellent hockey player at Shattuck St. Mary's, where Sidney Crosby, among others, went. Nathan McKinnon. Before he goes to Harvard, he was able to produce there. He might argue he was underutilized, but he took the Harvard degree to put together with his family the finest automotive group in the country, with dealerships in New York, Connecticut, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Florida, BMW, Maserati, Ferrari, Mercedes. The list goes on and on. NewCountry.com. They're with us now, and they are loyal, so they will continue to be with us. And once again, as I said at the top of the show, please get involved, get interactive on our audio and YouTube platforms, and be responsive, and honestly so, about how we're doing, how we can get better. Questions that, boy, I love answering the questions. So keep those coming, and there isn't anything that's out of bounds. Go for it, and I can only promise you one thing. I'll give you an honest answer. The final thing is I'm not just saying this because it's ours, but this merchandise is outstanding. We just added these visors. If you're old school, it was my buddy on the golf course that said, Tripp, can I get a visor? And my other buddy, a guy named Nick Giorgio, said, Tony, visors went out 20 years ago. These visors that we have are pretty darn good looking. Digintrip.com if you want anything. It's getting cold up here in Michigan. I have a dig-in toque coming. It's all good. So until part 2 next week with Tom Dundon, stay safe and keep digging in. Well, this one's been fun. I think episode 2 of Tom Dundon is going to be even better. Until then.
We're digging in with Tripp today, yeah. Today, yeah. Today, yeah. Today.